What's good, everybody, and welcome back to another car review here on The Driveway, where this week the boys and girls at Toyota have given me the notion that maybe my current daily driver needs a bit of a hefty upgrade, and they've given me that notion with this, the all-new 2019 Toyota RAV4. All right, boys and girls, so time to get this party started. And step number one, as always, it's time to start this baby up. Now, as I've said in many reviews prior to this one, we have a lot to talk about here with this Toyota RAV4. Number one, it is an all-new design here for 2019 and now going on to 2020. But secondly, and I guess more importantly, we are dealing with about as many options as you could possibly throw at one of these things. Reason being, this is the RAV4 Limited with all-wheel drive, so we're already getting in the upper price range already, but even more so, this particular example has the advanced technology package and the navigation package on board, bringing the total MSRP to just over 38 grand, which sounds like a lot for a medium-sized crossover. But the reason that I bring those features to light so quickly starts with Toyota's advanced keyless access. So it is standard on the limited trim, and you have the standard Toyota key with the RAV4 name on the back and the usual spiel of buttons, lock, unlock. This one has the power tailgate with hands-free assist and the panic function, as well as the releasable key blade out of the bottom of the key. Now, in typical Toyota fashion, you have the touch pads on both the front door handles that allow unlocking and locking the vehicle. So you have the key on you, just grab the door handle as normal. As you can hear, that unlocks the car, and to lock it, just simply touch your finger over the front edge of the handle. Now that seems pretty standard enough, right? A top tier trim, of course, with the standard keyless access, but the advanced technology package adds the touch pads to the rear doors as well, and they work a little bit uniquely for a keyless access system in general. So if you touch the driver's door handle, that unlocks just the driver's door. You do the same thing to the passenger door, that unlocks all four of the doors, and if you grab one of the rear door handles here, that will unlock all four of the doors at the same time. Now, once you get past this car's fancified door handle entry system, starting this car is just like any other keyless system out there. Just have the key fob anywhere in the vehicle, foot on the brake pedal, and simply hit the engine start button up here on the dashboard, and now, when looking at this new RAV4 from the outside, I will tell you that it does not look like any other form of this vehicle that there has ever been. Whereas the prior generation sort of had a reputation in my eyes of being kind of boring, middle-of-the-road Toyota crossovers, this thing is far from it. It's angular, it's muscular, and dare I say, it's very handsome, especially considering the fact that I actually was not a fan of this overall design when it first came out not that long ago. But as I said, we got a lot of features to cover, so let's begin here at the front. My particular limited tester has full LED headlights with the exception of the turn signals. These are still incandescent bulbs, but they do carry the automatic high beam assist. That's a standard feature here on most Toyota cars these days. Coming down to the side, we do have the incandescent fog lights. That's standard here for the limited trim. And then of course you have this beautiful open mouth grille here with the dark gray metallic finish. So we have the intuitive parking assist, both front and rear. So these are the front sensors up here. We also have an optional 360-degree bird's eye view camera, again thanks to that advanced tech package. So you have the front camera here, you have a camera in each of the mirrors, and then of course one located out back, and that one of course is government mandated. Apart from that, all the sensors up here for things like the full speed dynamic radar cruise control, the lane departure warning with active steering assist, and also the forward collision warning with pedestrian detection, all located up here in the front as well. Now, of course, this wouldn't be the limited trim without a serious set of wheels and tires to go along with it, and that's exactly what we have with these. The 19-inch super chrome finished aluminum alloy wheels. Now, they don't necessarily look like chrome. They almost look like they're painted, but they really do add a genuine bit of bling, especially when compared to the blueprint exterior that we have here on my test car. Underneath, you have the typical things, four-wheel disc brakes, but in this case, as I said before, we do have Toyota's torque vectoring all-wheel drive. And when you have bipolar weather like we do here in the Houston area, that all-wheel drive system can definitely come in handy. Now, in a sort of typical Toyota-ish fashion, the company hasn't necessarily gone great guns when it comes to a lot of external mounted features that would more distinguish this car as a limited trim, aside from what we've seen already. Case in point, you come down the side, you've got body-colored side view mirrors, you've got the little lashing of chrome with the LED turn signal inside, which is a nice little touch. And as I said, this car with that 360-degree monitor does carry additional cameras mounted under each mirror. So you have one here, and you have one on the other side, and again completing the set with the one at the back. The mirrors themselves, they are heated, and they also do have the blind spot monitoring either as an option or as standard. In this case, that does include the rear cross traffic alert and also the rear collision detection at the same time, so that's always a nicety to have. As I mentioned before, you do have all four touchpad door handles for the advanced keyless access system, and in the case of my test car, we also have the available panoramic sunroof. Now, just as we were saying about the front of this RAV4, when you look at it from the back, again, the design is not so much rounded or bulbousy, but more so a much more angular design. So you have things like the LED taillights here with this nice little angular point here along the side. The only thing not LED, again, just like the front, would be the turn signals. Those remain little incandescent bulbs, but you also have the LED reversing lights as well. I really do like this little lashing of silver here across the top of the tailgate. I believe that's standard for the limited trim, but it just adds something not only to break up the definitive break between the back glass and the dark blue paint, but it just had something nice to kind of catch the eye while you're back here. You do have the rear half of the park assist with the sensors here on at least the upper half of the rear bumper. You do have other little things such as the government mandated backup camera, but then you get to this car's party piece, which the Limited does come standard with a power tailgate, a pretty standard feature on a lot of higher end crossovers of all sizes. But this one comes with not only jam protection, so if something gets caught, say between the bumper and the tailgate, it'll open back up, but it also comes with hands-free access. Now, this one is a little bit controversial because it's not like where you stand next to the car and it opens after a couple seconds. You instead have to controversially wave your foot underneath the rear bumper. So let's just try that. And if you get it right, up it goes. Now, of course, being that the RAV4 has gotten a little bit bigger over the years, of course, that does entail things like a larger cargo space. Now, some would argue that some prior generations of RAV4 would have a little bit of a taller space, myself included, because I know the back half of my RAV4, which is a 2010, opens more like a door versus a power tailgate, thus allowing for a little bit of a taller roof line. But for what it is, with this new RAV4, you still do have quite a lot of space back here. Case in point, you can see my tripod almost all the way extended here across the back, as well as a cork board that I picked up just recently. Now, the numbers on paper are pretty consistent with what you would expect, about 37.5 cubic feet here just to start. Now, of course, you do have 60/40 split fold seats, so you can just lift up this little latch right here, fold those forward, and you pretty much double the amount of space that you have here in the back. And not to mention, you have things like, in this case, a optional cargo cover, which I always love, preventing those peeping eyes from looking here through the back. Now, we do have one other little nicety that I completely skipped over when I was talking about it earlier. You see this little bubble up here? That's actually a camera. Now, I'll show you what that goes to here in just a little bit, but let's just say it's not exactly what you might expect. Now, as one would expect, when you're talking about a top-tier trim level like this RAV4 Limited, you can't go without talking about its interior. Now, granted, a few pieces of this interior we have seen quite a number of times before. Things like the design of the steering wheel and that 8-inch infotainment display, which we'll get to here in a bit. But the first talking point I want to mention are the seats. Now, of course, this being the Limited, of course, leather seats are standard. But the one gripe that I have first and foremost is that in my test car, they are heated only for the front occupants. There's no ventilated function, which would have been nice because we do have some hot, muggy days like today here in the Houston area. But also, as someone that is sub 30 years old with already a sciatic nerve in my lower back, I am welcoming the fact that these seats are incredibly soft. They've been very supportive. You do have multi-way lumbar support here, as well as other power adjustments for the driver's seat. Unfortunately, that cannot be said for the passenger seat specifically, but I really do love not only the feel, but also the look of these leather-lined seats, to be specific. For the driver's side, you do have two-person memory settings up here on the door, as well as all the other typical electronic controls that you would expect. Now, as if on cue, it has started raining here in the Houston area once again with the tropical depression moving in. So let us start talking about this interior while we're nice and comfortable and dry. Now, like I was saying before, a few pieces of this interior, albeit that have been reworked a little bit for this new RAV4, they do still feel very familiar. And that starts here with just what's in front of you. The 3-spoke leather-trimmed multifunction steering wheel. I love the little lashing of silver here with the split spoke here at the bottom. And of course, it is festooned with all the typical controls you'd expect. Over here on the right, you have the distance sensor and main control pad for the full-speed dynamic radar cruise control, as well as the button for the lane departure warning with active steering assist, not to mention a few of your hands-free radio controls that then extend over here to the left, where you've got things like your volume control, as well as functions for the hands-free Bluetooth with voice recognition. And then you have the main arrow pad and back button for the 7-inch thin film transistor display that comprises your speedometer and holds pretty much all other relevant information, as well as your analog gauges either side. Now, the steering column itself is tilting and telescoping, so you do have the little manual latch down here on the left-hand side, so you can either move it up and down or forward and away from you. And then if you come over here to the far left, you have a couple of other little buttons that are actually rather nicely spaced apart. You have your instrumentation dimming here on the far left. You have your auto high beams that I mentioned earlier, the button over here on the far left. In the middle, you have a button that looks like a little camera. If you press it, you actually will get a 360-degree display up here on your infotainment display. And then finally, if you move over here to the far right, you do have the button that activates the power tailgate. So now as we get to the center part of this RAV4 Limited, the first thing we are greeted by is, of course, a very familiar sight. The 8-inch tablet-like infotainment display that Toyota has put in a ton of their cars within just the past year or so. Now, again, because my tester has the navigation package, we obviously have the standard Toyota navigation system. Now, I've mentioned this several times before, along with a few Lexus products that also house this same sort of navigation system. The graphics are pretty rudimentary. The touch response can take a little while, especially like zooming in and out. It may take at least a second or two to respond to your touch, but overall it gets the job done. It's nothing too extreme. Now, also on top of that, with the nav package, we get the 11-speaker JBL premium audio system with a subwoofer that's actually located in the trunk that you guys may have caught sight of earlier. Now, we'll talk about the sound system here in just a moment, but just to cover a couple of the other things here, we do have Toyota's newest Entune app suite 3.0, but unfortunately, because I don't have the Entune app suite on my phone, we can't explore some of the applications in here, but we do have things such as setting your destination for the navigation system and whatnot. You also have your audio, so that's Bluetooth, XM radio, AM and FM, as well as your Bluetooth functions. Again, the app suite button over here. This system is Apple CarPlay compatible, but to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe Android Auto has been added to this system just yet, which is again a bit of a downer because I am an Android user with a Samsung Galaxy S5. Now, I mentioned that JBL audio system earlier, and as you guys know, I've mentioned it in every review prior to now, I love my music, and when it is as clear as the sound that comes out of this JBL system, especially with things such as the Clarify music clarification system, it is truly a pleasant experience to listen to. So on the subject of bipolar weather, let's talk about some climate controls here, because here, if you're in the Houston area, you're going to be adjusting these quite constantly, because it seems like 1 minute it's raining like it is right now, and the next minute it's bright and sunny, but humid as all get out. So if you want to adjust the temperature, that's these big chunky knobs over here on the far left and right. You do have a couple of buttons within the center part of each one. You have the automatic function over here on the left, same with turning the system off, and then over here on the right, we have the button to synchronize everything as well as turn on the AC itself. Now, if you push the sync button, that means you can operate each temperature individually, or you can operate them both at the same time. All the rest of your buttons are located down here below the display. You have things like your front and rear defrost. You have the eco mode for heating and cooling. That's basically a system that doesn't zap as much energy from the engine, not only allowing you to get better fuel economy, but also maintain a sustainable level for the climate controls as well. You have the fan speed here in the middle, as well as your climate zone, which is one simple little button over here on the right, as well as the buttons for either drawing in the air from the outside or just simply recycling the air altogether. As you come down below that, you do have the traction control button as well, which is a good thing it's hidden, because I don't know why you would use it in this case, as well as the buttons for the heated seats that I mentioned earlier. Now, I will tell you, you will burn your tuchus off pretty bad if you turn it all the way up to the high setting, so even just on the low setting is definitely a lot more comfortable for me. As you move down here towards the front part of the center console here, not only do you have one auxiliary input and one USB input, but also you have the functional area for your cigarette lighter style plugins. But also, if you'll notice, this big rubbery area is part of that advanced technology package that I was mentioning earlier. It is the Qi wireless charging system that you have been placed in this car. You can turn it on using just the little power button here. When the green light is on, that means it is ready to go. But unfortunately, because my phone is so old, I haven't been able to use this system very much, but it's nice to know it's there just in case. So now getting to what is essentially the main control station down here in the center console. The first thing that I wanted to note is the positioning of the gear selector. This is a bit of an interesting one for me. Now, granted, this is a Japanese car where they're used to right-hand drive cars. Here in the US, it's a little bit different. So we have the steering wheel on the left side, and the gear selector just seems a little bit further away. I'm kind of used to going maybe straight down here, where in this case, we have the selector that controls part of the all-wheel drive system. But it's just kind of an interesting thing that the gear selector got moved so far away, and I just thought that was kind of odd. Now, the selector itself, albeit thick in design, does have this very big trigger here on the front, controls the 8-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission. Now, it goes through all the gears pretty nicely, and of course, when you go into reverse, you do have the typical rather high definition backup camera up here. Sad to say, it does not include trajectory, but it does include kind of a widescreen mode. So if I go here, you can see it narrows the camera's vision a little bit. You can go here into the 360-degree mode, thanks to the advanced tech package in this case, but then we'll just go back to the widescreen mode, which is actually my favorite out of all of them. You can actually change the type of guidance lines that you get as well, so you can see you have the crosshatch there in the middle. You also have just the rear bumper sensor, but my particular favorite, again, is just the traditional backup camera itself. Now, it does also come with the manual mode, so you push up to go up a gear, pull back to go down a gear, and again, the shifting response is actually pretty quick, so I'm actually not too displeased with that, despite the fact that this is just a simple 4-cylinder engine that it's attached to. Now, I mentioned that all-wheel drive system control station down here, and it's actually quite easy to understand. Before you get to that, you do have the electronic parking brake, as well as the auto brake hold function up here as well. And on top of that, you actually have your 3 different driving modes. So you have Eco, Normal, and Sport. And when you actually push these buttons, the tachometer in the gauge cluster will actually change color. So as you can see, it's white right now. You may not be able to see it, but when I push it into Eco, that turns green. I push it into Sport, it actually turns red, which is actually kind of interesting. I like to leave it in normal mode just to kind of get the best benefits of the two. But then you get to the main all-wheel drive control. Now, there are 4 different modes, 3 if you don't include the normal one, which is this big button here in the center. But if you twist this knob, if you turn it to the left, that goes into mud and sand mode. If you push it over here to the right, that goes into rock and dirt mode. I don't know if those are separate or if those are just combined into 2. But then below that, you also have a snow mode and hill descent control. Now, finally, coming towards the back of the center console, we do have 2 rather sizable cup holders here in the middle. It can hold your large Coke from your local McDonald's in there without any sort of issue. And then that trails off into this leather-bound center console here. Now it is actually pretty deep, and you do actually have a nice little tray here in the back, so you can do something like, I don't know, put your phone in there, which actually it will close, as you can see, with your phone in place nonetheless, so that's not going to get jammed in there, which is nice. If you look down in, you have two 2.1 amp phone chargers. So we already had the one that's up here in the center, but now we have two more that are here in the center console, and there's actually even more in the back. So I think there's like 5 USBs in here, just to name a few. So of course this wouldn't be a limited trim without a few little extra goodies that are kind of hidden in plain sight, but not so much at the same time. And the first one is, you guys remember that camera that I pointed out on the tailgate and I told you that it would be a little bit of a surprise? Well, if you look up here at the rear view mirror, and most of you probably won't be able to see it, but it actually has a slightly different border until about maybe ½ an inch into the mirror itself. Now, if I flick the tab on the back, you get a really cool little surprise. Suddenly, if I flip it up, what normally would be the normal position is suddenly a camera. Yes, there is actually a camera and digital screen hidden into this car's rear view mirror. Coming up to the roof, you do have your SOS button, as well as things like your sunglasses holder and all interior lighting. And then of course we get to that giant panoramic sunroof. Now this is an option separate from both the advanced tech package and nav package. I believe it's just a couple $100 extra to get the panoramic roof instead of just the standard size one that normally comes on the RAV4 Limited. Now you can retract the shade with the trigger on the far right. It's just a simple flick of the trigger. And then if you want to open the rest of it, just simply tug on the trigger on the left. So now getting to the back of the RAV4, and having driven multiple SUVs, they're around the same size, I can tell you that the space around this area back here is definitely on par with a lot of the crowd. For starters, legroom, as you can see, I at least have a few fingers width between my knee and the back of the seat, and this is the seat in my current driving position. Like I said, I'm not small, I'm 6'1", and as you can tell, I still have quite an amount of room between my knee and the back of the seat. So even taller passengers can sit back here, even if you have a bit of a taller driver. Another thing that I really like is the phone chargers that Toyota has put here in the back of the center console. So if you have a lot of people, say on a road trip or something, they will definitely be able to charge all of their electronic devices with ease. Apart from that, there are a couple of other things. You have the triggers up here on the sides of each of the seats. That's for the 60/40 split fold function. It would have been cool to have maybe a nice little 40/20/40 section, so have this kind of fold down. I know a lot of the competitors to the RAV4 have a feature very similar to that in some of their vehicles, but also we do have a sizable little center armrest here with 2 sizable cup holders, and it's perfectly fine at arm level, so you can definitely get yourself nice and comfortable when here in the RAV4's back seat. Alrighty guys, so you've seen it, you've heard it, and you've seen all the cool stuff that this new RAV4 has to offer. But now comes the crucial bit. Let's talk about how it drives, because as some of you guys know, and coincidentally in this case, I happen to be a RAV4 owner myself. But granted, mine is not the cream of the crop by any stretch of the imagination, currently having 123,000 miles on it, and it is a 2010 sport trim compared to this upscale premium version of Toyota's latest rendition of their best-selling crossover. Now, in terms of performance, the 2010 to the 2019 model year are actually relatively similar in several different ways. First off, they are both based on essentially the same platform as the Toyota Camry. Granted though, mine just came straight from the Camry and had an SUV body put on top of it, and this new one carries Toyota's new global architecture, which, as you can guess, underpins the new Camry as well. So it does share kind of a resemblance in that aspect, but also in terms of what powers it. Now, granted, what's connected to that powertrain, mine has a 4-speed automatic, this has the 8-speed direct shift automatic, but they both carry 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engines. Now, mine has sequential multi-port fuel injection. This has direct injection along with the variable valve timing with intelligent intake and variable valve timing with intelligent exhaust. But basically, they're only about 30 horsepower apart. This makes 203 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque, and is good for 25 miles per gallon in the city and 33 miles per gallon on the highway, which is actually surprising considering that this is an all-wheel drive test car that I have. So in terms of comfort actually with this car, this is one praise that I can definitely give this vehicle, and that is the fact that although the seats aren't sport seats, this isn't a race car after all, they surprisingly are very comfortable, and the driver bolster actually feels a little bit thicker than the bolster over here on the far right. Now, I don't know if, again, that's just because this is a test car, or if that's some kind of design at Toyota that they secretly have implemented into some of their vehicles. But overall, I mean, the seats are extremely comfortable. They definitely hold you in place just as you would expect. And like I said, I mean, this is a very smooth, very composed, and very well-behaved RAV4, and that's not something I can easily say about a lot of SUVs, especially in this category, or I shouldn't say SUVs, I should say crossovers, to be politically correct. The suspension isn't bouncy, it's not harsh. Again, even with larger wheels and tires on it, it really does feel much more well-behaved and much more composed when it's out here on the road. Now, despite my grievances with the engine, one thing that I've found kind of enjoyable over the past 2 weeks that Toyota has lent us this car is the fact that I have the 3 different driving modes down here. Now, I normally drive this car in eco or normal mode because I don't really have that urge, that sense of I want to drive fast. But if I just reach down here and put it in sport and even just leave it in drive, it almost sounds kind of like an old Civic Si. Just take a listen to this. It's just got that sort of urge, that sense of almost playfulness, and that's kind of fun in an SUV or crossover. Again, I keep saying SUV, and really I should be saying crossover at this point. But what I think is just great is that Toyota still knows how to make a car fun, even though the namesake doesn't exactly evoke sort of fun, spirited sort of driving. Well, everybody, that brings our review and drive of this 2019 Toyota RAV4 to a close. I do hope you guys have enjoyed this review, and I hope you guys feel free to give this video a thumbs up, and also be sure to click that subscribe button down below for many more videos like this and more to come in the future. But at the end of it all, a huge thanks goes out once again to the folks at Toyota USA, i.e. Gulf States Toyota, for providing us this beautiful RAV4 to drive for a solid 2 weeks. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.